Hello class. Today we are going to discuss about good laboratory practices. This is nothing but the part of good manufacturing practices that must be followed by the pharmaceutical industries as given by the regulatory authorities. So GLP is the part of good manufacturing practices. So whatever the work personnel do in the lab, it must be also good as we do in manufacturing process. In this particular content, we are going to discuss about GLP guidelines and where it is applicable. So first of all, what is GLP? So GLP may be defined as a body rules, operating procedures and practices established by a given organization that are considered to be mandatory with a view to ensuring quality and correctness in the result produced by a laboratory. As I told you earlier that the GMP is good manufacturing practices. So whatever the work it is done in a lab, that also must be according to the quality, or GLP is quality system concerned with the organization process and condition under clinical health and environment safety, which must be planned, performed, monitored, recorded and reported. History of GLP, it was first introduced in New Zealand and Denmark in 1972 and later in US in 1978 in response to the industrial bad test lab scandal. So then it was followed a few years later by Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, that is OECD. Principles of GLP in 1992, the OECD has since helped promulgate GLP to many countries. Elements of GLP include certification of laboratory facilities, certification of analysis, specimen sample tracking, documentation, accountability, reagent material certification, statistical procedure, instrumentation, validation, and quality assurance. So standard operating procedure, it is usually provide an elaborated description of various ongoing activities carried out in a analytical laboratory. It is a standard procedure which is to be followed for performing a process or for operating an equipment. So examples, sample handling and preparation, analytical method used, proper maintenance of all instrument, record keeping. Quality assurance unit, so it is entirely responsible for assuring GLP being implemented effectively. So whatever the work is done in production or here as we discussed in laboratory or in quality control testing, all these activities must be according to quality, and quality management system should be maintained by the industry person management, we must say. So the primary responsibility that are exclusively fall within the domain of QAU, quality assurance unit, are implementation of quality procedures, assessment of quality procedure on a continual basis, audit of the laboratory periodically. So quality procedure, whatever the procedures we have planned to maintain the quality, they must be implemented. Then assessment of quality procedure, that it is in implementation or not, to how we can assess that it is implemented, and audit of the laboratory periodically. Yes, objectives of GLP, it include adopt good and safe operating procedures and recording system, prevent human error in the performance of the job, prevent equipment error in measurement, prevent unsafe and hazardous act which could affect individual and or property, improve efficient procedure performance of the person. So here successful GLP study, it include a veterinary staff, study director, quality assurance team, regulatory team, contributing scientist. Idea behind GLP, it belongs to the function of the respective authorities to make sure that the safety and the environment is proven. Safety claim can be verified. A regulatory authority may then obtain verification of such an experimental result by two methods, one itself or step by step. So GLP principles, they are designed as a tool enabling also the improvement of the study and data quality. All these requirements can be summarized in three issues that are central to the ideas behind GLP. It includes possibility, Accountability, GLP increase awareness. So possibility to reconstruct the whole course of a safety study even years after it has been performed, and even in the absence of person have been actively involved in the conduct of this specific activity. For example, all the animals have received the correct dose of the test item at all times. Means as the study was done 10 years back, it must be according to protocol, or if it is to be done in a present time, so same protocol should be followed until or unless any modification has done. So it means it was performed according to the guidelines only, and whatever the person has performed earlier he is performing, or any other person maybe, but the procedure, but the protocol must be followed, so that the correct sample have been taken and analyzed and the actual data has had been collected every time, either it is a first time, second time, or last time. All the procedure, every time it must be done in a similar manner. These reports submitted to the regulatory authority. So second factor is accountability. It is very closely connected with the first one. The documentation needed in GLP compliant conduct of a study will tell years later who was doing what and who could be held accountable for mistake. So GLP increase awareness in the management for the never-ending task to strive for optimal quality and transparency of the studies conducted at their test facilities, and to performance and the orderly performance of the studies. Scope of GLP, it is defined as OECD in the OECD principles that which state that GMP and GLP encompasses the non-clinical safety testing of the test item contained in pharmaceutical product, pesticide product, cosmetic product, veterinary, as well as food additives, feed additives, and industrial chemicals. So these items are frequently synthetic chemical, may be of natural or biological origin, and in some circumstances may be living organism. So purpose of testing these items is to obtain data on their properties and or their safety with respect to human health or environment. Okay, then area of application, it is applicable in two major areas. First is effect on human health and effect of environment. So these two areas may share some type of studies that have to be conducted in order to test the safety of the respective test item, but other study types may be exclusively be required for one or the other area. So second point of observe in the judgment on the necessity for GLP adherence is that studies only conducted to obtain data on the properties and safety, but they are intended for successful for appropriate regulatory authorities. So then applicability of GLP to human health and environmental safety. So it testing spells out yet another facet of this delimitation, which may give rise to a number of questions. So laboratory testing that is performed is non-safety related way. So physical chemical parameter of pharmaceutical chemical substance might thus not be considered as related to an assessment of human health risk for a pesticide or another environment substance. However, parameters like their vapor pressure, acid-base equilibrium constant, or their water octanol partition coefficient, all of which will determine the nature and extent of environment dissipation and accumulation, and will safety related data have to be generated under GLP guideline. So data to be generated in GLP have to have a connection to the assessment of safety for either of the two fields, human health or environmental safety. So in this regard, there are apparent difference between these two fields. Necessity to follow the strict regulation of GLP will be determined by two basic principles of the scope of GLP. First is the safety relatedness of the investigation, and foreseeable submission to a regulatory authority. So pillars of GLP, four pillars are there. First is management, second quality assurance, the study director, national compliance monitoring system. Management, which is convinced that GLP is a good thing itself. Therefore, an essential management responsibility is the appointment, effective organization of adequate number of appropriately qualified and experienced staff throughout the facility, including those specifically required to perform QA functions. This management responsibility brings us to second pillar of GLP, which is quality assurance. So This is an internal system for assuring that the principle of GLP are observed. So compliance with GLP standard in the everyday work at a test facility can only be as good as a critical observational capability of the quality assurance inspector on the other hand, and also only as good as the ability of the manager to succeed in carrying through any objection to the way GLP is handled by individual person. So it may be thus regarded as a tool of the management which exercises its control and compliance within the test facility. Third pillar is one single person, that is your study director. It is the person on whom the whole study hinges from the beginning to end. Study director is usually the scientist responsible for study plan, design and approval, as well as overseeing data collection, analysis and reporting, and drawing the final conclusion from the study. So this is National Good Laboratory Practices Compliance Monitoring Authority, as per DST, Government of India, and approval of the Union Cabinet on April 24, 2002, member of the OECD for GLP. India is an observer to OECD Working Group on GLP. Authorities has trained 33 experts in the country as GLP inspectors. National Compliance Monitoring Authority. So this is for the international recognition and mutual acceptance of the study and test data. So this recommendation set out the basic characteristic of the procedures for monitoring GM compliance with GLP principle. Following the recommendation 2 guidance, document compliance monitoring procedure for GLP and conduct of laboratory inspection and study audit. Both directed at the national monitoring authorities were issued. Fourth pillar is mutual uh, trust, right? That is your comparative monitoring procedure. Mutual trust is achieved, mutual acceptance of safety. So where can GLP be profitable applied? So this is restricted to apply to such test facility only which are performing human health and environmental study safety. So studies which furthermore have to be submitted to regulatory agency for assessment. So only on these two things it is concerned. So it is evident that not every laboratory would fulfill these conditions. Outside the field of non-clinical human health and environment safety testing, where GLP has to apply, official recognition should be based on quality standard other than GLP, since GLP is absolutely confined to the said areas, that is human health and environment safety studies. So principles GLP, they are not new, they are not unknown. So they are summarized as follows. There should be a unique identification for the study and all of its parts, or original observation in a study should be immediately, clearly and legibly recorded. All records should be in the form of bound notebooks or on continuously numbered sheet. All entries and connections to them should be dated and initiated and initialized. Then record related to test system itself should be gathered, and retained specimen should be clearly identified, and at the end of the study all the raw data should be assembled and archived. So GLP principles are much more demanding in this respect, and in the section on conduct of the study, following instructions are given for the recording data. All data generated during the conduction study should be recorded directly, promptly, accurately and legibly by individual entering the data, and all entries should be signed and dated. So possibilities inherent in the applicable control mechanism might subsequently provide the means for judging the shortcoming of the present activities and for improving the scientific quality of the future work. So as we know that in every aspect we have to maintain the quality. So in next lecture we are going more about GLP. Thank you.